Do you remember when you first heard about hyperbitcoinization? And the reason I ask is when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, yeah, come on, man. Like I think I read it on Nakamoto Institute, and I was like, yeah, this is a cool, interesting digital asset. I understand people are going to send it to each other, but this hyperbitcoinization, nah. I was just like, I totally wrote it off. And then, 4 years down the rabbit hole and seeing everything that's happening, I'm like, oh shit, I get it now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the Bitcoin maximalist perspective, at least like what a lot of Bitcoin maximalists say they believe in, definitely captures this vision of like ultimately all financial value will be settled, measured, communicated in Bitcoin. So that to me, that's what hyperbitcoinization means. Like Bitcoin is like this substrate for communicating value. And I don't remember fully when I heard about it pretty early on. Class of 2017. So obviously Pierre and Bitstein had been, putting out a lot of great information, for a while at that point. But my journey to, I guess becoming Bitcoin only and, really becoming a Bitcoin believer was pretty quick. Like I discovered, crypto during the NFT, the ICO bubble. I was in the tech space, and because I was in the tech space and, venture capital and startup in Silicon Valley, I already knew what it looked like for like shitty startups to raise a lot of money. And then I just, saw all these ICOs like, oh, these are just really crappy, shitty startups, and they're raising like an order of magnitude more money than normal Silicon Valley startups. So I was already kind of primed to like see through that. And, I just went down a really speedy journey to like, oh, wow, like Bitcoin is really the signal here. As I started, learning more about, what Bitcoin philosophers thought about what Bitcoin was going to do to the world, I was pretty open-minded to accepting those ideas. So I did not really push back on hyperbitcoinization in my mind. I think I pretty much accepted it, from the start. And if anything, it articulated something that I already believed, which is that like, oh, wow, Bitcoin's going to be a big deal. It's this new neutral financial plumbing for the world. And hyperbitcoinization is just like a interesting articulation of that.
And do you think when we go through hyperbitcoinization, we come out the other end, there are no fiat currencies? Or do you just think Bitcoin becomes the standard, becomes the measure and stick for everything else?
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell like how power dynamics are going to be like in a Bitcoin oriented world. A lot of people have like talked about it's going to reduce the power of the state. It's going to reduce the power of the printing press and that kind of stuff. But it's too early to tell. So I wouldn't want to say that there won't be fiat, but I do think that on the journey to hyperbitcoinization, there's going to be like the traditional economy, and then there's going to be the Bitcoin economy. And we're starting to see the Bitcoin economy like getting bigger. And ultimately, these two competing economies, the Bitcoin economy is going to prove to be a lot more efficient. It's going to prove to help the participants of that economy, allocate capital much more effectively. And what it's going to end up looking like is like, oh, wow, like there's growth in Bitcoin and there's stagflation in fiat. And I'm sure, Lynn Alden and a lot of the other amazing economists that come on to your show, they've talked about, the dying fiat system a lot.
A fuckload. Okay, so this is a really tricky and tough question, but like, how do we know when we've hyperbitcoinized? Like, how do you know? Because I think you can make an argument that some individuals have themselves.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I mean, so yeah, some people are living in the Bitcoin economy. Yeah. I would say the hyper-Bitcoinized, like there's kind of like this point of like, the Bitcoin economy and the fiat economy are equally liquid. And then that's really when, I guess if you look at the adoption S-curve, like that's when you go vertical on the adoption S-curve, because that's when like there's no decrease in your ability to do commerce or manage an economy in the Bitcoin system, and then you just get all the benefits of the Bitcoin system. You can just throw away the old system.
Okay. Okay. So there's a difference. People are on a Bitcoin standard now. I certainly am. You probably are.
It's helped Bitcoin Magazine a tremendous amount.
I see a number of Bitcoin companies. they are pricing in Bitcoin.
Yep.
They are holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Everybody's understood that if you play that 4-year time scale, then it makes sense to hold Bitcoin and it accelerates growth. We've seen that, especially with the mining companies. Haven't talked to them. A lot of companies or individuals also playing that speculative attack, whether it's taking a loan to buy Bitcoin, whether it's buying property with the longest possible mortgage with the lowest possible rate. Lots of people are speculatively attacking Bitcoin. Refinancing is happening a lot. We've seen Saylor do it. I've done it. Lots of individuals have done it. So that Bitcoin standard's happening. People are speculatively attacking fiat. I guess you're saying that's different from hyperbitcoinization, where we see a massive FOMO of people coming off a fiat standard.
So I would say like we are living in hyperbitcoinization. Hyperbitcoinization is a process. Yeah. So like we're in the early-ish stages of the process, at least before things have accelerated a lot. But, obviously like the Bitcoin economy is big enough that, it can support MicroStrategy. It can support El Salvador. It can support What Bitcoin Did and Bitcoin Magazine and all those other, organizations. And it's really about like during the process, like there's the two side-by-side systems, right? One is shrinking, one is growing. And I think you can look at a lot of economic measures to show why like the velocity of money and all this kind of stuff within the fiat system is trending towards an unhealthy level. And then here on the Bitcoin side, the velocity is increasing. All on-chain, signals point to health. All fundamentals point to health within the system. And again, like, people are prospering. Like you can just zoom out and like businesses in the system are prospering. Maybe it's just because it's the bull market or we just experienced a lot of, price increases. But I just think ultimately it's going to come down to, Bitcoin helps you allocate capital better. Bitcoin is a better economic system. Bitcoin works, whereas the other system, it's difficult to make economic calculation. Like how can you make economic calculation if you don't know what the price of fuel is going to be like, tomorrow, right? I think the price of fuel has increased, by several, 10, 20 cents in California, like every single day, 7 days in a row, right? And that's, you could say that's extreme circumstances, but, we've been experiencing an economic storm. We've been living in this like economic storm in fiat for the last 2 years in a really obvious way, and it makes it hard to do business. It really does.